Hey everyone, this is your OG, Original Gamer, and this is another Godforge video. Today we are going to be doing a deep dive on scheduling the global launch for Fateless and Godforge. We're going to talk about the challenges and the opportunities that exist, and we're going to wrap up with your OG's wild, hairy prediction about how many gamers Godforge could see in its first 6 months. This video is going to be jammed packed with valuable info, so you're not going to want to miss a minute. Let's optimize. All right, so here we are, and we are looking at the best time of the year to release a video game, and we're going to take a strategic breakdown on this. So we are showing you the October and November schedules of 2025, and I'll get into more as to why. But choosing your optimal release window for a video game involves balancing competition with other games that are out there, audiences' behavior, seasonal trends, and platform dynamics. So we're going to look into the pros, the cons, and ideal timing for different game types. Okay, so we will come back to that in a moment. So key factors influencing releasing of timing. So the holiday season, as you would expect, is a big time for games to come out. This is when they say the AAA games come out, okay? The big games come out October to December, Q4 of the year. Now, why? Well, the pros are there. High consumer spending. You have Black Friday, you have Christmas, you have gifts purchasing, you have hype that's built around this time of year, you have vacations for kids and people to take time and actually enjoy the games. So yes, there's a lot of pros around this part of the year. What are the cons? Well, it's a very crowded market, and you're going up against the biggest names in gaming, not even in your niche of gaming. So we're going to look into that. You have games like Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, Grand Theft Auto. We're going to look at those games and when they're possibly coming out and how that is going to influence your OG's prediction for when the game should have its global launch. We'll get into that a little later into the video. So yes, the holiday season is prime for blockbuster AAA titles or family-friendly games, things that are going to be bought for Christmas and bought for the holidays. And it's really where established franchises pump out. And we're going to look at this in more detail when we look at Call of Duty and when we look at Grand Theft Auto later on as to when they released their games. Okay, so then the next one, early fall, September, October. This gives you some post-summer lull and time for pre-holiday buildup. It gives you Halloween-themed releases, but the con is you're competing with back-to-school spending and back-to-school attention. You know, there's homework and there's projects and there's things going on. So gaming isn't the only, outlet for folks that are using it. They're not always, maybe like in the summer, they're not free to just play, or around the holidays when they have time off, or even for your work schedule, you have time off around the holidays more. So this is the cons. This is really good for horror games like Resident Evil pushed out during this time, mid-tier AAA titles, and live service launches. So we're going to talk about that hybrid here as we go forward. So now, I think Sham or somebody mentioned in one of the previous podcasts that they look at two real windows. There's a spring window and then sort of the end of the year window. And so you're seeing why here, okay? So in spring, March to May, you have post-tax refunds. There's lighter competition. It aligns actually with Japan's fiscal year, which starts in March. And there's a lot of good reasons to just go counter to the meta, if you were, and not release in Q4 and do something in the spring. You're can be the only show in town. You do have fewer holiday sales spikes to go with this. And it's best for, games like Final Fantasy or indie titles or indie game development studios or niche genres. The summer, it's great for like gaming events, so you kind of want your game already there because you have a lot of students with free time. The cons are there's lower overall spending and you're competing with vacations and vacation time. And people may be away from their home console. So summer isn't always as good of a time as you would think it would be to release something. It's good for experimental indies, free-to-play titles, and expansions and things on your existing games. So January, February is a really interesting time period because you get this post-holiday sales lull, okay, right? Like right after the holidays, which makes January kind of a dry month a lot of times. Gamers tend to be looking for new content if they have already burned through their games they got for Christmas in the 2 or 3 weeks. But budget conscious spenders tend to look for this time period to go out and buy. So when you're on things like what's it called here? Stream. January is a big month for gamers to go and get a bunch of titles for a lot less. So it's not, if you slip past the Q4 into January, February, it can be decent for some indie titles and things like that, but it really gets into a time where the spending has already occurred. So we want, in my opinion, we want to stay in 2025. I think the gamers and everybody would want that. Of course, the development schedule will determine it, but I think it's fair. We want to be in 2025 and not slip into January, February. So these are genre-specific timings. So like I said, AAA blockbusters tend to push for the October, November. That's when Call of Duty comes out every year. I'll show you that in more detail. Horror, as I said, can tend to, shoot a little earlier for September, October and try to make use of Halloween. Family, kid type games, November, December is a big one. That's when all the spending for that typically happens before the holidays. Like I said, March, April, there is that sort of counter launch in the spring that you can go with. So Godforge, I think, was, or Fateless was sort of thinking of the alpha probably in terms of trying to hit the March, April window, but it didn't. So, but it's testing, so I think it's okay. I think really what's going to be important is the global launch date. So as we push forward here into the next part, so what are some risks to avoid? Obviously, we've talked about overcrowded periods. The holiday period of 2023, just 2 years ago, saw 40 plus major releases and it buried some smaller titles. So there's some risk in being put out at a very overcrowded time. Now, maybe your game doesn't directly compete with every other game that's being released, isn't the same kind, doesn't have the same community around it. These are all things we're going to look into. You also want to watch AAA shadow drops, like times when things for Grand Theft Auto or Elder Scrolls or things are expected, because, and we'll talk about it more in our anticipated releases section as this video goes forward, but you're going to want to watch out for some of those things just so you don't get bulldozed by their marketing dollars taking the eyes and the attention away from you. All right, so platform considerations for console launch. Okay, so we want, even though Godforge is a PC mobile game, we need to be aware of the console launches that might pull attention. So in Q4, October through December of 2025, there are a couple of notable games that will be releasing. So every October, November, Call of Duty puts out another title. So there's that. So you have the Call of Duty series looking to come out sometime in October 2025. Now that aligns because they have about a 45-day season or so in their cycle, and so that lines up well, and their cycles go through the year. But just to look back, right, some notable releases from Call of Duty. In 2015, they released on November 6th. In 2016, they released on November 4th. 2017, November 3rd. 2018, they went all the way to October 12th. That's the earliest they'd ever released. And then, now, so you know, in 2015, that first November 6th release was Black Ops 3, and that is their record holder. They sold 43 million copies of that game, and it is the highest released Call of Duty game ever. So then in 2018, it was October 12th. This is the earliest they went. Then 2019, the next year, they pushed it all the way back to October 25th. This was the Modern Warfare reboot, and this release sold 41 million copies, being their second highest release. Again, closer to November. So their two highest releases are October 25th and November 6th. Next year, they did the exact same thing, released again on October 25th, and Black Ops Cold War sold 30 million copies. They then, on 2021, went November 12th because they're releasing Vanguard, and November 11th is Veterans Day in the U.S. November 10th is the Marine Corps birthday. So November 12th and Vanguard made sense. They sold 30 million copies. 2022, October 28th. 2023, November 10th. and 2024 October 12th, also way back to their earliest release date. But you'll notice all of their releases are between October 12th and November 12th every year. So that's Call of Duty. Obviously, they're a big name and have sold millions and millions of copies. Different game from Godforge, of course, but they're a AAA. Fateless wants to be a AAA. They don't want to be an indie or a niche gaming development company. So they're going to want to be in this mix, and they're going to want to be following the same recipe. So another game coming out November 9th, Halo Infinite is supposed to be coming out. That's the current projected release date. So we could have that right around a similar time that Godforge comes out. Again, not the same kind of game, not the same kind of gamers and gamer personalities that are interested in this, but another thing that's pulling attention. Also, The Last of Us Part 2 Left Behind is coming out on November 14th for PS4. It's another one that will be pulling eyes and attention away. Also, The Ghost of Tsushima 2 on PS4 comes out November 20th. Okay, so this is another one. These are the top 4 or so, I'd say, console games that will be coming out right around when Godforge should be looking to release. Okay, so now, what are the PC and mobile launches to be aware of during this time period, right? Okay, so you have Vampire the Masquerade. This is Bloodlines 2. This is the second follow-up to their first one. That comes out October 2025 on PC. Like I said, it's a long-awaited sequel to the Cult RPG. It's now set in Seattle, and it has immersive sim mechanics and a dark narrative. So that comes out in October 2025. Double Dragon Revive comes out October 23rd, 2025 on PC. A modern reimagining of the classic beat-em-up franchise with updated visuals and combat mechanics. So that's coming out October 23rd. Cyberpunk 2077 comes out November 19th, 2025 for PC. A futuristic RPG with a rich storyline and immersive world. Half-Life comes out November 23rd, but that one is on a VR headset, so that's a little bit different experience. Death Stranding comes out November 9th on PC. It's a sci-fi horror game from the Dark Pictures series set on a doomed space station. Hades 2 full release comes out late 2025. We don't exactly know, but it is already open for early access. That comes out on PC. This is the sequel to Supergiant's award-winning roguelike expanding of the Underworld's lore and combat systems. Valorant Mobile from Riot has a 2025 and Q4 release date. Not exactly sure when, but it could be in the mix. Ananta from Project Mugen has a late 2025 release. Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 has a late 2025 release. The Division Resurgence has a late 2025 release. Genshin Impact has game updates, and Pokemon Go has content updates also potentially scheduled for Q4 that could come into the mix as well. Now, that is Q4 of 2025. That's when we're looking to be. I don't see anything so huge that that it would take away from or would have Fateless shy away from a Q4 release. So we'll talk more about that. Now, Q1, Q2 of 2026, though, let's say we were to slip. In Q2, May of 2026, you have Grand Theft Auto 4 and Elder Scrolls 4 potentially coming out. Now, Grand Theft Auto 4 is a delay from 2025 because there's some rumors that it's taking them longer to polish it up than they expected, but you wouldn't want to be competing with a Grand Theft Auto 5 release at the same time. Obviously, it's not till May of 2026, but this is Rockstar's highly anticipated sequel, returning to Vice City. Here's some interesting notes on GTA. Their release date history, okay? So first, Grand Theft Auto was released November 28th, 1997. So a little later, kind of more right before Christmas or right before December. But then GTA 2 came out October 22nd, 1999. So 2 years later and almost a month sooner. GTA 3 matched it, came out October 22nd, 2021. GTA Vice City came out October 27th, 2022, so only 5 days later. GTA San Andreas came out October 26th, so they're really not straying far from the dates that work. And GTA 4 came out, now this was the anomaly. GTA 4 came out April 29th, 2028. So perhaps they missed their window. That was a 4-year gap from the previous San Andreas. So perhaps they missed their Q4 window and they pushed for that Q1, Q2, or more like Q2 of the next in the spring. But then GTA 5 is set, or GTA 5 came out September 17th, 2013. So that was a little bit early in the season. But you notice they were very consistent with an October-November release date. So Elder Scrolls 4 also rumored for Q2 of 2026 on PS5, Xbox, PC. This game became the third best-selling game in the US in 2025 within a week, trailing only Monster Hunter Wilds and Assassin's Creed Shadows. And this is a rumored remaster of the classic RPG, Elder Scrolls. So Elder Scrolls 4 is going to be something that will be coming out in 2026, so I don't see us wanting to slip to the next quarters. So PC and Steam. Obviously, some of the advice, you want to avoid AAA clashes, but buyers target Steam sales during, which gives them deep discount on games. Those sales tend to be winter sales, mid-December to early January. It's about a 19 to 20-day period. And then summer sales, late June to early July, about a 14-day period. So those are typical Steam sales times when gamers are looking to get deep discounts and be able to have a plethora of games but not pay full price for everything. Okay, so here's what we really wanted to get to. This is mobile games that are like, what can we take from what mobile games have done to help Godforge release? Well, some of them have released during holidays or cultural events. So a good example of that would be Honkai Star Rail. It came out during the Chinese Lunar New Year and aligned with that. So along that line, we're here in October of 2025 right here. These dates, 10th through the 15th of October, align with a celebration, sort of a pagan celebration called Emberfall. It goes from October 10th to October 15th, and it celebrates, I can't even make this up, it celebrates the shattering of the first anvil, a mythic event where the Godforge is split into fragments, scattering divine sparks across the mortal realms. They celebrate by lighting bonfires to symbolize the sparks of creation. They craft miniature anvils from iron and clay as offerings, and they recite epic poems about gods like Kael'thar, the unbroken smith, who reforged the cosmos after the shattering. There is a launch potential right there. So that's our first offer, is you could launch Godforge between October 10th and 15th and play into Emberfall. Okay, now the next option is you could go with a Halloween into Dia de Muertos, or Day of the Dead, on November 2nd. But what it's called is a Dia de los Forjadores. It's October 31st to November 2nd, and it combines Dia de los Muertos with Halloween, and it pays homage to the great divine smiths like Vesryan the Flame-Eyed, and it corresponds to the Gaelic festival of Samhain on November 1st. What is the Samhain Gaelic festival about? You can't make this up. Where the threshold between the divine and mortal world is said to be the thinnest. This is the Celtic New Year. They celebrate by having a dumb supper, it's what it's called. It's held in silence so that they can commune with the ancestors. So there's your second good launch date that I'm giving to you. All right. Third, Singles Day in China is November 11th. Veterans Day in the US is November 11th, so it's a holiday. And Convergence Night is November 11th, okay? Also, November 11th is a Tuesday. No kidding, you say. You're real brilliant, OG. Right. But we're going to talk about why all kinds of video games have released on Tuesdays to great success. Anywho's, so this day would mark, and maybe we would start the release on the 8th, on the Saturday before, and make a time period of it. But the release on, or we start the release on the 11th and then extend from there. However they decide to do it. But the 11th being the launch date, it marks the alignment of celestial forges or stars in the sky, amplifying mortal creativity, right? So traditions include, this is Convergence Night, traditions include hosting all-night crafting competitions, metalwork, storytelling, and digital art. They burn star metal incense. It's a blend of sage and iron fillings to honor the celestial armory. So this is November 11th, Convergence Night / Veterans Day / all the single people in China are going to be looking for a game. I think this might be a front runner for when I'm going to recommend you release Godforge. But we'll see. Stick around to the end. Last but not least, the Truce of Ash. So we are at the end of November. Let's say, you know, all the best laid plans of releasing the game at this time and this time and this time. We just have more work to do. We need more polishing. It's just not ready. So we push it to later in November. Okay, we still want to be ahead of December. We want to have the game launched before Christmas. So that way spending in the game isn't a new thing. It's just something, and there's already activities and festivals and things that going on inside the game because people have gotten to that point already. So this would be, in my opinion, the last ditch launch effort for Q4. Maybe you could get into the beginning of December, but I think you really lose the runway you need. But I am not gonna tell anyone exactly how to do it. I'm just gonna give recommendations. So this is the 25th to the 30th of November. It's called the Truce of Ash. The lore commemorates the day that the warring gods paused their battles to rebuild the world crucible. Traditions include exchanging gifts of ash-filled vials, which symbolizes renewal, and forging temporary alliances in games and collaborative projects. So I think that could be a really cool date. However, my final recommendation. So AAA studios target October and November for the holiday hype, okay? And if they don't do that, they go for March or April for the spring. Indie development companies go for February or August trying to dodge AAA traffic. Live service games tend to launch in June or September to build momentum pre-holiday. The reason why, and obviously Godforge is somewhat of a live service game, is that they already are building their community. They're not going to go to launch with 0 people ready for or interested in the game, or only the 1% of early adopters that are interested in any new game. So this is going to be really powerful. I think that we're looking at a hybrid between what would a AAA studio do and what would a live service game do. And we're trying to align the game genre, the audience, and the marketing budget and marketing strategy with these windows so that we can maximize visibility and sales while minimizing competition. Leveraging Fateless's existing community is super powerful. How the team at Fateless does this with a referral system, maybe once the game goes live, and how their excited community goes out and markets for them for free to bring more people to them. That will be a really interesting thing to see. Not all referral systems work well, and sometimes they get gamed, and it'll be interesting to see what Fateless can bring with regards to a referral system. But I think that because they have such a strong community already built, it makes the date that they choose just a little less important, because it's not all about this big marketing buildup of excitement and then everyone being there on that day. The community is already being built and is there, and that's the difference. And Fateless is not launching a paid game. They're launching a free game where you can have in-game purchases, so that also doesn't directly compete with the AAA game studios, although everyone is competing for time and attention. So I think that Fateless wants to be a AAA game studio. They want to be big, so they want to be the best. So I think launching in that window is how you announce yourself, right? So as I mentioned before, games have historically been released in October, November, the biggest games, and they have historically been released on Tuesdays with great success. Don't ask me why. Back in the day was a Wednesday. You launch video games on Tuesdays. I don't make the rules. I just share them with you guys. But I'm looking at the back end of this window, right? Because I want to give the Fateless team as much time as possible to polish and refine the game. Like, sure, I'd love it to be out in September, October. But I'm looking at, okay, what gives them the most amount of time to get the game launched, but then also takes advantage of the timing that they want to launch for. Okay, so that's where my recommendations come from, and I believe that November 11th is the optimal launch date. Okay, so what could a Godforge and what could this launch look like? What could post-launch look like? All right, well, I did some research on Raid Shadow Legends growth model. Raid launched in February 2019. In the first 6 months, it drew spending and attention from games like Vikings War of Clans, and it grew quickly. And now, 6 years in, it's averaging 3 to 6 million users per day, though some estimates have it as low as only like 145 to 400,000 at any one time across all platforms. But that's still a good number of people. Google Play accounts for 60% of their revenue and 73% of their downloads, which Raid has more than 100 million downloads to date, 62 million installs globally. US has the highest at 25% of those installs globally. So the US is 25% of those 62 million installs, followed by, who do you think 2 and 3 are? Russia and France, funny enough. The total lifetime player spending in Raid exceeds $1 billion. So if you're upset with Polarium's greedy tactics, that feels like they have already made in excess of $1 billion from Raid in the last 6 years. Polarium was actually acquired by MTG on November 2024, but the deal wasn't closed until February 2025. This is 3 months ago. So I don't think you're going to see a lot of improvements in the gameplay of Raid in terms of how it feels greedy, because they just got bought out. And if you go look at the board of directors or the C-suite of folks, they don't look like the type that are gamers. They look like the type that put down a really good bottom line. So just want to put that out there. OG did some research, and to give you an example of what Godforge could follow, millions of users a day, billions of dollars in revenue, because I think that Godforge is better set up to monetize, even though it's not really the purpose. I don't feel like it's what its driving force is, but I just feel like the gamers coming up with this are smarter about how to build in ways to spend if that's what you like to do. So some partnership possibilities we'll throw out in the research we did for Fateless and Godforge as they get going, like Fantasy World, obviously Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones are great ones. Sci-fi, you have Star Wars, Star Trek, and Guardians of the Galaxy have all been things that have been tossed around. Historical, you have like feudal Japan and Wild West and ancient Greece and things like that you could tie into. There's obviously anime and manga with like Dragon Ball Z or Attack on Titan or Naruto, or you have World of Warcraft, D&D even, like some of these old games that you could partner with and bring certain characters back from. You have movie and TV, like Addams Family, right? The Wednesday show is big. Like you have characters like that. She could be an Ecker. The Addams Family could be an Ecker. I don't know. But you have Twitch, YouTube partnerships, esports partnerships, all that. But anyways, this was a deep dive on a go-to-market timing strategy. Obviously, EuroG thinks November 11th is the ideal date. Not only is it Veterans Day and Convergence Day and Singles Day in China, but we will see what Fateless decides. Thanks for sticking with me all the way through this one, and I hope you learned something. Hit the like button and subscribe to help me get this channel past all those stupid initial requirements so that we can stop telling you about them. Take care of yourself, and remember, play smarter.